The First Schleswig War, from 1848 to 1851, exposed a critical weakness in the Prussian Navy. The Danish fleet, with its superior ships, had effectively blockaded Prussian ports. This humiliation highlighted the need for modernization. Prussia needed to invest in new technologies. One such technology was the screw propeller. The screw propeller promised to revolutionize naval warfare. In 1850, Prussia took a decisive step towards modernizing its fleet. In 1850, the paddle steamers Danzig, Nix, and Salamander were authorized. The frigate Gefion and the paddle steamer Barbarossa were acquired when the Reichsflotte, imperial fleet, collapsed in 1852, and Adalbert continued to push for expansion of the fleet into the mid-1850s. In 1855, he secured royal approval for a new fleet plan. It ordered the construction of the SMS Grille. Grille was laid down in 1856 and was launched on the 9th of September, 1857. The French Emperor Napoleon III sent Prince Jerome Bonaparte to the launching ceremony to honor King Friedrich Wilhelm IV. The training ship Hella carried the new crew to Le Havre while fitting out work was being completed. Grille was commissioned on the 3rd of June, 1858. This ship would be Prussia's first screw propeller-driven steamship. Grille was designed in 1856 by her builder, Chantier et Atelier Augustin Normand of Le Havre, France. Her name was chosen by King Friedrich Wilhelm IV after the play Die Grille, The Cricket, by Charlotte Birch Pfeiffer. The ship was built in a French shipyard in Le Havre. They were notable for building small warships in the early part of the 20th century. They also developed the Normand boiler, an early design of 3-drum water tube boiler. The Grille's hull was carvel-built and constructed with transverse mahogany frames, though the rear and side walls of the stokeholds were iron. It measured 172 feet long at the waterline and 187 feet overall. She had a beam of 24 feet 3 inches. She had a draft of 9 feet 4 inches forward and 10.5 feet aft. As designed, she displaced 350 tons, 340 long tons, and at full load, displacement increased to 491 tons, 483 long tons. The ship was divided into 3 watertight compartments and was sheathed in copper to protect it from biofouling. Biofouling or biological fouling is the accumulation of microorganisms, plants, algae, or small animals where it is not wanted on surfaces such as ship and submarine hulls, devices such as water inlets, pipework, grates, ponds, and rivers that cause degradation to the primary purpose of that item. Grille had a flush deck and a minimal superstructure, featuring a small deckhouse forward and a larger one aft. During a refit in 1889, the forward deckhouse was removed, and a smaller structure was erected further aft, behind the foremast. The ship's crew initially consisted of 5 officers and 65 enlisted men. This later increased to 6 and 72, respectively, and finally 7 officers and 68 enlisted. The vessel carried 4 smaller boats, 2 yawls and 2 dinghies. Grille was a good seaboat. It had a gentle motion, though it rolled quickly. She was very maneuverable and maintained her speed in a head sea or in turns. Steering was controlled by a single rudder. Between 1880 and 1902, she carried a searchlight atop the aft deckhouse. The ship's propulsion system consisted by a horizontal, single-expansion, 2-cylinder marine steam engine that was manufactured by J. Penn and Sons of London. The engine drove a single 3-bladed screw propeller that was 9 foot in diameter. Steam was provided by 2 coal-fired Scotch marine boilers. Also built by J. Penn and Sons A Scotch Marine Boiler, or simply Scotch Boiler, is a design of steam boiler best known for its use on ships. The boilers were ducted into a single funnel located amidships. The ship initially carried no armament, but following the outbreak of the Second Schleswig War in 1864, she had 2 long-barreled 12-pounder guns installed. She was disarmed after the war, only to have the guns reinstalled during the Franco-Prussian War in 1870-1871. Grille was once again disarmed after the war, remaining so until 1879. At that time, she received one 12.5 centimeters 23 caliber breech-loading hoop gun that was supplied with 140 shells. It had a range of 5,200 m, 17,100 feet. In addition, she received a pair of 8 centimeters 23 caliber guns. 337 mm, 1.5 in Hotchkiss revolving cannon were added in 1882, with 3 more being installed in 1898. The larger guns were removed at this time. In her final configuration from around 1900 or 1901, she carried just 2 of the Hotchkiss guns. The machinery was rated at 700 metric horsepower, 690 imperial horsepower. This gave the Grille a top speed of around 13 knots or 15 miles per hour. To supplement the steam engine, she was fitted with a 3-masted schooner rig that had a total sail area of 436 meters squared, 4,690 square feet. Fuel storage and cruising range figures for her original power plant have not survived. In 1886, the original engine was replaced with a horizontal 2-cylinder double expansion steam engine manufactured by AG Vulcan, Stettin, along with new coal-fired fire tube boilers also built by AG Vulcan. A shorter funnel, moved further forward, replaced the original one. The new machinery increased her maximum power to 760 metric horsepower, 750 imperial horsepower, and her top speed to 14.4 knots or 16.6 miles per hour. After this refit, she was capable of storing 65-ton or 64 long tons of coal. At a speed of 7 knots, 8.1 miles per hour, the ship had a cruising radius of 3,230 nautical miles. When cruising at 10 knots, 12 miles per hour, her range fell to 2,160 nautical miles. She was modernized again in 1897-1898, receiving new boilers from Borsig. Her sailing rig was cut down to auxiliary sails only. At various points in her career, she received electric generators that produced 2.3 to 5 kilowatts, 3.1 to 6.7 horsepower. The Grille was launched on April 9, 1853. It was commissioned under the Prussian Navy on April 25, 1853. The Grille's arrival marked the beginning of a new era for the Prussian Navy. It represented Prussia's commitment to advancing maritime. It was a clear sign of Prussia's growing ambitions on the seas. The SMS Grille was a significant technological achievement for Prussia. It was the first Prussian warship to be equipped with screw propulsion. This innovative technology gave the Grille increased maneuverability, greater speed, and independence from the wind. The screw propeller, located at the stern, allowed the Grille to turn more quickly and efficiently. The Grille's construction marked a turning point in Prussian shipbuilding, paving the way for larger and more powerful warships. After its commissioning, the SMS Grille was initially deployed without armament. The ship steamed to the Baltic Sea to her home port at Danholm to begin sea trials that lasted until the 22nd of October when she was decommissioned. The ship was recommissioned in early May 1859 due to increased tensions between Denmark and Prussia over the disputed ownership of Schleswig and Holstein, though the war scare passed quickly. Her commander during this period from May to June was Lieutenant zur See, LZS, Lieutenant at Sea, Heinrich Kohler, and Grille only conducted a tour of the Prussian coast with Prince Adalbert aboard before being decommissioned. She was briefly reactivated a second time that year from August to October. Apart from her commander having been Kapitänleutnant, KL, Lieutenant Captain Ludwig von Henk, nothing is known about this period in commission. The ship was recommissioned in June 1860, commanded by Korvettenkapitän, KK, Corvette Captain, Hans Kuhn, with the intention to send the vessel on a cruise in the Mediterranean Sea, but the ship was still without armament and the plan was abandoned. Kuhn left the ship in August, being replaced by LZS Hermann Przewozczyński. Though the ship was once again decommissioned in October, she remained out of service for the next 2 years, and on the 16th of January 1862, she was redesignated as a royal yacht. Grille was recommissioned under the command of LZS Franz Kinderling in July 1863 for use by Crown Prince Friedrich and his family to make short trips. The Second Schleswig. War, with tensions again on the rise between Prussia and Denmark by the end of the year, Grille was allocated as the flagship for Prince Adalbert, the commander of the Prussian fleet. Following the outbreak of war in February 1864, she was activated for this purpose on the 10th of March, by which time a pair of 12-pounder guns had been fitted. Grille remained in port when Eduard von Jachmann took several vessels to sea to attack the Danish blockade, resulting in the Battle of Jasmine in March. Adalbert came aboard the vessel on the 29th of March at Stralsund, and on the 6th of April, he observed training exercises with the gunboats in the Bay of Greifswald. Grille sortied on April 14th with Adalbert aboard for a sweep bay of Pomerania that resulted in an encounter with the Danish ship of the line Skjold and the steam frigate Sjælland. Grille opened fire at long range, leading to an indecisive 2.5-hour battle in which Grille easily outran the more powerful Danish vessels. She fled back to Swinemünde, where the gunboats of the 1st Flotilla and Jachmann's squadron covered her approach. As it was nearing dark, the Danish commander, Admiral Edvard van Dockum, chose to break off the pursuit. The Grille, now accompanied by the gunboats of the Reserve Division, sortied again on the 24th of April. For this operation, Grille served as the flagship of now Kapitan zur See, Captain at Sea, Kuhn, who was the commander of the gunboat division. Off Hiddensee, the ships encountered the Danish steam frigate Tordenskjold, resulting in a 90-minute battle. Grille initially remained outside the range of the Danish guns, but after she hit Tordenskjold's rigging several times, the Danish frigate closed the distance, prompting the Prussian vessels to break off the engagement and return to port. Grille embarked on another sweep off Hiddensee 2 days later, but she encountered the combined Danish squadron, Skjold, Sjælland, Tordenskjold, and the armed schooner Absalon, prompting the Prussians to withdraw without engaging. She conducted one last operation on the 6th of May under Jachmann's direction. In company with the screw corvette Nymph, I Flotilla, and the Reserve Division, Grille sortied to attack the blockade squadron, but as Sjælland and the ironclad warship Dannebrog arrived on the scene, Jachmann aborted the operation and returned to port. The armistice that ended the war took effect 6 days later. King Wilhelm I and Crown Prince Friedrich boarded the ship for a naval review in the mouth of the Oder River on the 6th of June. With the war over, Grille joined the main Prussian squadron that visited a number of ports in the newly acquired provinces in the western Baltic in August. While cruising in the Trave, she accidentally ran aground on the 24th of August. The gunboats Comet and Cyclop assisted the stranded Aviso, which was ultimately refloated after considerable lightening of the ship. Grille proceeded to the Schwefel and Hauwalt shipyard in Kiel for repairs before resuming the tour with the Prussian squadron, which concluded on the 18th of September in Kiel. Prince Adalbert held another naval review there in October. He observed the fleet from Grille. The Aviso thereafter returned to Danholm on the 1st of December, where she was decommissioned and disarmed to return to yacht duties. Section 4. From Warship to Royal Chariot, the Grille's Transformation. Following the Second Schleswig War, the SMS Grille underwent a significant transformation. Grille was recommissioned on the 1st of May 1865 to take Crown Prince Friedrich and his family on a cruise. The ship's captain from June to September that year was K.L. Archibald MacLean. She remained out of service in 1866, but was reactivated for another cruise by the Crown Prince's family the next year, once again under the command of now K.K. Przewoznicki. She went to Danzig in 1868 for an overhaul that focused largely on repairs to her boilers. The next year, Grille was reactivated to take part in ceremonies on the 17th of June, marking the opening of the naval base at Wilhelmshaven, which had just been completed. On the 30th of August, she joined the Prussian ironclad squadron, the first time the unit had been activated, for exercises in Kiel. Grille received orders in mid-September to join a squadron that consisted of the steam frigates Hertha, Arkona, and Elizabeth, and the gunboat Delphine, to attend the opening ceremonies of the Suez Canal in Ottoman Egypt, at the invitation of Sultan Abdulaziz of the Ottoman Empire. After stopping in Piraeus, Greece on the 22nd of October, Grille embarked Prince Friedrich, who was to represent the North German Confederation at the ceremonies. The ships traveled first to the Ottoman capital, Constantinople, where Friedrich met with Abdulaziz from October 24th to the 29th. On the way to the canal, Grille and the other ships stopped in Jaffa and Beirut. After arriving off Port Said, the ships were delayed by a lack of harbor pilots until the 15th of November. Grille's captain, K.K. Ratzeburg, was to have secured the pilots in advance of the ship's arrival, but he failed to do so. Instead, the British admiral directed the vessels to a safe anchorage for the night. For his failure to carry out his responsibility, Ratzeburg was confined to his quarters for 24 hours. The Crown Prince passed through the canal aboard Grille as part of the ceremony on the 20th of November. The squadron left Port Said on the 1st of December, proceeding to Alexandria, where they waited for Friedrich to return from an expedition to the Nile. Grille left on the 9th of December, Friedrich having boarded Elizabeth for the voyage to Italy. Grille remained in Naples until January 29, 1870, thereafter resuming the voyage home. While on the way, she stopped in Britain and was visited by Prince Edward and Princess Alexandra. The ship finally arrived in Kiel on the 26th of April and proceeded to Danholm, where she was decommissioned on the 5th of May. Section 5. Back in the fray. The Grille's role in the Franco-Prussian War. The Grille's days as a royal yacht came to an end in 1870 with the outbreak of the Franco-Prussian War. The ship was hastily rearmed and reactivated on the 24th to serve as the flagship of the gunboat flotilla division that was stationed in Stralsund. The unit was placed under the command of K.K. Franz von Waldersee. The French squadron that had begun a blockade of the Baltic coast used the bay at Koga on the island of Sjælland as their base. Waldersee sortied with Grille and 3 gunboats on the 17th of July to attack the French squadron. He encountered 3 frigates and an aviso. The inconclusive action that followed ended when Grille entered water too shallow for the French to continue their pursuit. Though neither side inflicted damage on the other, Waldersee's attack had disrupted French plans for an attack on Swinemunde, for which he was later awarded the Iron Cross. On September 10th, Grille was assigned to the command of Konteradmiral, Rear Admiral Eduard Helt, the commander of naval forces in the Baltic. Grille conducted a reconnaissance sweep around Bornholm and into the Little Belt, which revealed that the French had already left the Baltic. Grille, Elizabeth, and some gunboats passed through the Kattegat and Skagerrak into the North Sea on October 6th, arriving in Wilhelmshaven 3 days later without having encountered any French warships. For the rest of the year, Grille was used to patrol the German Bight. She met French vessels at sea only once, on the 12th of October, though they did not engage each other. By mid-December, the rivers in the area had begun to ice over, forcing Grille to anchor at the naval depot at Geestemünde for the winter. By the time the winter ice had receded in March 1871, the war had already ended, so Grille returned to the Baltic in company with Elizabeth and the ironclad turret ship Arminius. After arriving in Kiel, she was decommissioned on the 17th of April. Section 6. A multifaceted career, serving the Navy in peacetime. Following the Franco-Prussian War, the SMS Grille returned to its role as a royal yacht for the Crown Prince and his family for a summer cruise through August. She was used for a tour of the coasts of Pomerania, Mecklenburg, and Schleswig-Holstein for the Coast Defense Commission beginning on September 4th. The ship was then decommissioned for the winter and returned to service in July 1873. She again embarked Prince Friedrich on the 3rd of May, this time to carry him to Christiania, Norway, for the coronation ceremony for Oscar II, the King of Sweden and Norway. 2 days later, she rendezvoused with the German training squadron and the ships entered Christiania for the ceremonies. Grille departed the port on the 9th of May and steamed to Malmö, where she embarked Prince Friedrich on the 19th of May to return him to Kiel on the 22nd. While on the way back, Friedrich accepted an invitation from Christian IX of Denmark to visit the country. This was the first time a member of the Prussian House of Hohenzollern had visited Denmark since the Second Schleswig War. The Navy did not initially plan to recommission Grille during 1874, but after the gunboat Albatross was deployed to Spanish waters, the Navy hastily commissioned Grille to take her place in the annual fleet maneuvers held in September. On September 19th, she hosted now Kaiser Wilhelmshaven for a review of the training squadron, and the next day she was present for the launching ceremony of the new ironclad Friedrich der Grosse. Grille returned to yacht duties for Prince Friedrich in 1875, and in September that year, Wilhelm I and several Bundesfürsten, federal princes, came aboard for another fleet review. She remained out of commission for 1876 and 1877, but was recommissioned the next year. From the 10th to the 17th of May, she hosted several members from the Reichstag and the Bundesrat, Federal Council, during the launching ceremonies for the ironclad Bayern, followed by torpedo demonstrations off Friedrichsort. The next year, she was reclassified as an aviso and rearmed, her place as Imperial Yacht having been taken by Hohenzollern. She served with the training squadron from the 5th to the 22nd of May, and in late June, she assisted Friedrich der Grosse and 2 tugboats to tow a floating dry dock from Kiel to Swinemünde. Another fleet review for the Kaiser was held from 10 to the 15th of September in Danzig Bay, and Grille was decommissioned on the 25th of September. Grille returned to service in early 1880, and she joined the training squadron for exercises from 3 to the 25th of May, with Prince Friedrich aboard. The ship was present for the launching of the ironclad Baden on the 28th of July. Grille was used in the first tests of a searchlight to spot and defend against torpedo boats attacking at night. The next year, she took part in the May Squadron maneuvers, and in July, she hosted Prince Wilhelm during a visit by a British squadron. In September, she hosted the Kaiser during a meeting with Tsar Alexander III of Russia. The next 2 years followed a similar pattern of mid-year exercises with the fleet. From May to August 1882, KK Karl Berenden served as the ship's commander, followed by KL Otto Flichtenhofer from August to September. In 1883, she fired a shot across the bow of a Norwegian merchant ship that failed to fly a flag in accordance with international law. Grille served with the fleet from April 22nd to September 5th, 1884, under the command of KL Oskar von Schuckmann. And during the annual fleet maneuvers at the end of that period, she served as the flagship of the Armored Gunboat Division, commanded by KZS Karl August Deinhard. In 1885, Grille was used for surveying work off the coast of Mecklenburg, the bay at Aarosund, and around Rügen, covering a distance of some 104 nautical miles or 120 miles. The ship was thoroughly overhauled at the Kaiserliche Werft, Imperial Shipyard, in Danzig in 1886. She received significant improvements, including a new propulsion system and new planking for her decks. The work was completed in late 1888, and on the 1st of January 1889, she was assigned to the recently created Reserve Division of the Baltic Sea. On the 2nd of May, she began a series of cruises along the coast with naval officers aboard to familiarize them with various locations along Germany's Baltic coast. She also took part in the training maneuvers with the rest of the fleet, including participating in a preparatory cruise in the Western Baltic and into the Elbe River before the annual fleet exercises in September. Section 7, A Legacy of Service, the end of an era for the SMS Grille. Grille continued the same activities in the early 1890s. In 1890, under the command of KK Georg Sarnau, she hosted government officials for the ceremonial transfer of Helgoland from Britain to Germany, and in 1891, she visited ports in Scotland with KL Ernst Gulick as her captain. She was present for the launching of the new Hohenzollern in June 1892. KL Karl Derzewski served as her commander from April to September that year. The years 1893 and 1894 passed uneventfully in the same pattern as previous years. KK Max von Basse was her commander in 1894. She was then decommissioned in Danzig for another overhaul, and in June 1895 she was present for the opening ceremonies of the Kaiser Wilhelm Canal. She embarked Kaiserin, Empress Augusta during the Kiel Week sailing regatta in 1896, while under the command of KL Karl Dick. The next year followed a similar pattern, with no incidents of note. She was reconstructed again in late 1898 at the Kaiserliche Werft in Kiel that included a reduction in her rigging and the removal of her deckhouse. The next year, the coastal cruises began to include members of the newly created Admiralty Staff. From May to September 1899, KK Wilhelm Becker served as her commander. Grille's coastal cruises were interrupted on the 2nd of September 1902 by leaking boiler tubes that necessitated repairs. Once those were completed, she joined I Squadron as the aviso and headquarters ship, serving in those roles until the end of April 1903. She was also used as a fleet tender, and for the first time she remained in commission through the winter of 1903 to 1904. Periodic maintenance was carried out in Danzig from November 28, 1904 to March 5, 1905, thereafter serving as a tender and headquarters vessel. For much of this period, she was stationed in Kiel. Another overhaul followed from March 4 to April 10, 1906 in Danzig. She thereafter resumed her normal routine of cruises and was assigned to the Training Inspectorate later that year. She became the headquarters ship for the fleet flagship, Deutschland, beginning on September 21st. She returned to Danzig on November 14th, where she was decommissioned on March 26, 1907 for repairs to her boilers. Grille resumed coastal cruises in 1908, and on the 3rd of June, the crew held a celebration of the ship's 50th year in service. Kaiser Wilhelm II issued a cabinet order to mark the occasion. The ship carried out the same routine of training cruises and tender and headquarters duties from 1909 to 1913, with no events of note during that period. She was stationed at the Marine Station der Nordsee, North Sea Naval Station, at the time, and she was decommissioned toward the end of every year in Wilhelmshaven. She was recommissioned on the 1st of April 1914, the last time she would do so in peacetime. She was decommissioned on the 19th of July during the July crisis that resulted in World War I. Grille was reactivated on the 10th of July 1915 for use as a tender for the training ship Freya, based at the Merwick Naval School, and served in that role for the duration of the war before being decommissioned for the last time on the 17th of December 1918. She was struck from the Naval Register the 7th of January 1920. By that time, the Grille had served for over 6 decades, the longest career of any vessel in the Imperial fleet. She was thereafter sold for scrap and was broken up in Hamburg. Man, they really should have kept it as a museum ship. You have a ship in service for nearly 62 years, and it being the longest career of any vessel in the Imperial fleet, and you sell it for scrap, shame on them. Anyway, it had witnessed tremendous changes in naval technology and warfare. Throughout its long career, the Grille had served in a variety of roles. It had been a warship, a royal yacht, an aviso, a survey vessel, a training ship, and a tender. The Grille's adaptability was a testament to its sound design and construction. However, the ship's legacy lived on. The Grille had been a pioneer. It was the first screw propeller-driven steamship in the Prussian Navy. It had paved the way for the development of a modern German fleet. The Grille's story is a reminder that even the smallest and seemingly most insignificant ships can leave a lasting mark on history.